In this video, I'm going to show you how to deploy an app, making it publicly accessible on the web with a fantastic service named Heroku. Heroku makes it extremely easy to deploy web apps currently located on your own computer to the web with just a few simple commands. Before you can deploy apps using Heroku, you need two things: a Heroku account and Git installed on your computer. Creating a Heroku account is entirely free. They do offer paid plans, but they're only necessary for running apps that will be accessed by a significant amount of users, which require more powerful servers. After creating an account and logging in, you'll see your Heroku dashboard. You can see at the top, it prompts you to download the Heroku Toolbelt, which I've done ahead of time. There's a Toolbelt for both Mac and Windows, and it should prompt you to download the proper one. With our Heroku account created and the Heroku Toolbelt installed, we can start in on deploying our app. I've taken the liberty of creating a directory, YFWA Heroku Hello World, for the test application we'll be deploying first. You can see that we're already in that directory within the terminal. The first thing we need to do is log into Heroku via the terminal by issuing the Heroku login command. It prompts us for our Heroku account credentials, and once we enter them, it automatically prompts us to create a new SSH key used for securing communications with our Heroku account. Great. Now we're logged into Heroku via the command line. The first thing we're going to do is create a test PHP file, which we'll eventually be deploying via Heroku. We also need to create a composer.json file, as every PHP application deployed by Heroku is required to have one. The final requirement before we can deploy is to establish a Git repository in our directory. Heroku requires the presence of a Git repository to work its magic during the deploy process. And we're all set. We'll start by creating our new Heroku application using the Heroku create command. You can see that by running that command, our Heroku application was generated and assigned a new auto-generated application name, Peaceful Stream 4324. After we deploy our application, we'll be able to access it using the URL you see here in the terminal in our web browser. To deploy the application, we simply run a git push command, pushing the files up to Heroku. Heroku automatically detects that we're deploying a PHP application and sets up the environment appropriately. Let's copy our app's URL and go take a look at it in the browser. And there it is. Nothing to write home about in its current state, but that's how easy it is to deploy an application publicly using Heroku. For the sake of demonstration, I've prepared another simple PHP web app to deploy using Heroku. You can see the app functioning locally on my own computer. Now let's deploy it using Heroku to make it publicly accessible. We're now in the To-Do Apps home directory. We're already logged into Heroku, so we don't need to do that again. Since this app has never been deployed using Heroku before, it doesn't have a composer.json file. Let's create one. Next, just as we did before, we need to initialize a new Git repository and add and commit all of our app's files. Now let's create our new Heroku app. And finally, we can push up our files to deploy our app. All set. Let's go test out our app via our auto-generated Heroku application URL. Uh-oh, there's one problem. This app was connected to a local MySQL database, which our Heroku app has no access to. Luckily, we can fix that by creating a new MySQL database within Heroku. Heroku offers a ClearDB add-on, which we can add to our application using the Heroku add-ons add command in order to attach a MySQL database to it. Great. We now have a MySQL database attached to our Heroku application. We just need to import our local databases tables to the remote Heroku database. I took the liberty of creating an export of our local database using phpMyAdmin ahead of time. Let's connect to our remote database and import it. We can grab our remote database's information from the ClearDB database URL environment variable in our Heroku config. With that information, we can import the database export file I previously created to our ClearDB database. There are just a few more things we need to do. We need to change our app's database connection information. We need to update our composer.json file so that our app will recognize our new database, and we need to deploy those changes. Let's start by opening up our app's database connection config file. As you can see, I've prepared the changes ahead of time. The ClearDB add-on makes it super easy to grab all of the relevant connection information. We just grab the value of the ClearDB database URL environment variable it sets, parse out all of the relevant information, and update the database settings accordingly. Next, we'll update our composer.json file to include the MySQL extension. With those changes now in place, the last thing we need to do is add, commit, and deploy our updated composer and database configuration files up to our Heroku application. All set. Now let's go back to our browser and make sure our new database connection is working properly. And there we go. Our app is now fully deployed on Heroku, connecting to a remote MySQL database. And the same exact process we just followed will work for hosting any PHP application at all using Heroku.